Welcome to the SBK Cheltenham Preview evening. I'm Jess and I'll be your host this evening. Plenty to crack through. 28 races at the Cheltenham Festival, obviously 5 championship races, National Hunt's greatest show on earth, the Olympics of the sport. This year, SBK is best price every runner, every race at the festival. So we hope the insight we can give tonight will give you everything you need for a successful festival. Obviously, it's always the Irish versus the British on every score, and very pleased that helping me we have one of the best Irish jump jockeys and one of the best British jump jockeys in Cheltenham Festival winning jockey Adam Wedge. Arguably is having his best season to date with Welsh Grand National heroics and Christmas hurdle success on his champion hurdle Hope Silver Streak. So hi to Adam.
How are we? How are we all?
Very well, and we're also delighted to be joined by Johnny Moore, stable jockey to Gavin Cromwell, who has steered leading stayers hurdle contender Flooring Porter to glory 3 times already this season, and we'll be looking forward to riding him at this year's festival. So hello, Johnny.
Hello there. How are you all?
Good stuff. And journalist and tipster for Racing Post, Tom Collins, joins us to share his abundance of wisdom and hopefully give us some winners for the week. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Jess. A few winners on the way. Don't worry about that.
Brilliant. And don't forget to use SBK this Cheltenham Festival. So in 2020, you would have made 101% more profit with SBK than starting price of backing every winner. So don't forget to use SBK when selecting your horses that we are giving you tonight. So we're going to start with day one, obviously Tuesday, the opening day of the festival, arguably one of the best and busiest days, most competitive days of any. And Adam Wedge has probably got one of the most important rides of the week on day one on champion hurdle Hope Silver Streak. And Adam, this horse has made enormous strides over the last 3 seasons. He must have always been held in such high regard by your team at Evan Williams's. And in 2019, he was thrown in at the deep end in this race and was third at 80-1. And that was off the back of some handicapping efforts, and including the Great Wood. And last year, he was 6th in the race. But this season, he's just been an absolute sensation. Last time out, possibly his best effort to date, in that you beat the champion hurdle heroine in Epatante. My question to you is, can he repeat those antics from last time out? And will you be setting that frenetic pace that you did last time to beat both Epatante and Honeysuckle?
Hopefully we can reproduce that form again. I say that's his best form to date. I can't say for sure that we're going to go out a million miles an hour, but I think it's given us a lot of opportunity to change the way we ride him and just be that bit more positive, because in the past he was quite a keen going horse that we had to settle, which is why we always dropped him in. But I think as he's grown up, it's given us a bit more option to go and do and make a bit more use of him, and it proved massive dividends on Boxing Day. And hopefully we can be thereabouts in the champion hurdle and give them a good run for the money.
Yeah, and Evan was saying, I've read that, you know, he's hopeful he'll finish up in the first 6, and that the race it's got a lot more depth than most years, perhaps. You know, the year this year's renewal, the likes of Goshen throwing his hat into the ring and Honeysuckle stepping up into this division. Who do you see as your biggest threat? You know, obviously Epatante was a bit under par last time because of the back issues, but do you think it's Epatante you've got to beat, or are you looking outside of that, of her?
I think Epatante will put up a massive performance. I say we probably caught them off guard a little bit in Kempton, but at the end of the day, we were the best horse on the day. I think the biggest danger is Honeysuckle. I think she'll take a lot of beating. She's been very impressive over in Ireland, so I'd be very, very wary of her.
Yeah, and you talk about the pace of the race, and if you're not going to go out and set it, we know for sure that the likes of Not So Sleepy probably will anyway. He didn't do that last year, but he's pretty enthusiastic, and you want to stay far clear of him after what happened earlier on in the season. So there'll definitely be enough pace. Is factors like the ground something that you worry about with Silver Streak going into this, looking like it's going to be on the quicker side? And we know that always have soft in the going description, but it's going to be fast.
faster the better for us. I think he proved that first time out around Kempton. I think he set a track record in the listed hurdle that he won. So yeah, I think the better ground, the better for us, really.
Yeah, he's a 17-1 shot at the moment with SBK, and considering his the results he has every time he goes to the champion hurdle, he must have a top 4 finishing place in him, don't you think?
Definitely. I think, look, he's been placed before, and this year he looks better than ever. So, we'll be going there full of hope that we can be finishing the first 4. I think we've ran a massive race, and whatever happens after that will be,
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, thoughts on the champion hurdle? It's got a lot of depth this year. The 2 mares at the top of the market, they can't really be separated. Honeysuckle's currently around 5-2, just ahead of Epatante around 3-1. Goshen 4s and Abracadabras at 17s. Is it obvious that the mares who've got their £7 allowance, they're going to be very hard to beat, or is there something else lurking here?
Well, the mares are going to be hard to beat, aren't they? I mean, Honeysuckle is an exceptional mare. She's 10 out of 10. She just doesn't know how to lose. I'm just a bit wary that she's too short in the market, given she's probably better over further. It was an inspired ride by Rachel Blackmore in the Irish Champion to win this year by a wide margin. And obviously in 2020, when she last ran in the Irish Champion, she beat Darva Star by half a length, who obviously Johnny rides on a regular basis. So Honeysuckle's brilliant. I just think Epatante's the most likely winner of the race. Now, recency bias will probably give Honeysuckle favouritism, and I wouldn't be surprised if she goes off, a well-backed jolly for Henry de Bromhead. But Epatante, she's just largely been forgotten about because she lost that Christmas hurdle to Silver Streak. Now, that was a great ride by Adam because he just took the race to Epatante. Yes, she didn't have the firepower that she showed in the fight in 5th. But I think back at Cheltenham, and given she's had a break, Nikki Henderson will have Epatante back on form. And the way she won the race last year, beating Sharjah, who was at his prime, I just think if she repeats that feat, then she's going to be mightily tough to beat in here.
So if I throw to you that the race fell into her hands slightly last year, and Johnny, you were 3rd on Darva Star that day, so you got pretty close to her. Riding in that race, and looking back on it now, did you think that things sort of opened up quite nicely for her? And Barry obviously rode a brilliant ride. And do you think Epatante's got any chink in her armours? And could she come back and defend it again in a slightly different complexion to the race this year?
Yeah, she was flawless last year. I actually turned for home last year because I knew my lad would stay well. And I thought at the time, I thought I had everything beaten. I was going to the last powering up the hill. And I turned in at the top of the hill. I was still going as quick as I was from the bottom of the hill. I couldn't believe the turn of foot Epatante had. The way she came by me, she nearly spun me around going to the last. And she's so slick at her hurdles. And I think Adam gave Silver Streak a great ride at Christmas. And it took the race to Epatante, but that day the race was taken to Epatante as well. There was a strong gallop by Petit Mouchoir. There was loads of us up in the van. It was a competitive running champion hurdle in the fact that there was such a strong pace. And Barry rode her mid-division there or whatever and followed us through, and she showed a blistering turn of foot and made the rest of us look ordinary. So yeah, if she comes back to that form, I think she's obviously going to be very hard to beat. But obviously the other mare, I suppose the mares, they hold all the aces. Getting £7 from 2 high quality mares like that, it's very hard to beat them. Like Honeysuckle, I always thought she needed to step up and trip, but I was standing down at the line the last day in Leopardstown. Just went down to look, and the turn of foot she showed from the turn in Leopardstown, blew us all away. They were standing down at the last, so they're 2 very, very good mares. I think it'll be hard to beat the 2 of them if the 2 of them turn up in a good vein of form. But obviously, it'd be great to see Adam get a result or as close he could on Silver Streak as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rachel that day on Honeysuckle was fabulous. She really timed it well, and she knew what she had underneath her. And most impressive today. It's gonna be a cracker, and good luck to you, Adam. We discussed just moving on from the champion hurdle. We discussed Darva Star, Johnny, who was 3rd in the race last year. He's been running over fences as a novice this season, and he's doubly entered. He's got an entry for the Arkle and for the Marsh. But it looks from reading what Gavin has said that the Arkle, perhaps with the ground as what it could be the most likely option for him. he obviously won his beginner's chase and he was disappointing last time at the Dublin Racing Festival. How do you see his chances heading to Cheltenham if he is to go?
Listen, Darver Star, he's been a little bit, I suppose, looking at him a little bit in and out this year. His run at Christmas was very good. Probably a rider misjudgment on my behalf, going up at the early pace, and then getting a little bit collared on the line. I thought he was the horse to get out of the race. It looks a very strong Arkle in my eyes, and I'd be kind of trying to lead more towards the Marshal than myself. I think he's crying out for a step up and trip, but maybe the Arkle could be ran to suit him this year because, as you know, All Mankind is going to go off at a good gallop, and Ergumine is something that I've never seen before. So there's going to be plenty of pace. So maybe an Arkle could be a race where you could steal a bit, or you're going to have to stay this year in the Arkle. But for me personally, I probably would side more to go for the Marsh, but because the Arkle is so competitive as well. Siskin's obviously very good, and Ergumine I think is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like him in a novice chase in Ireland. He over 2 miles, the way he attacks his fences, the way he won in Leopardstown, I think he's massive value as second favourite to Shiskin. I can't see Shiskin beating an Ergumine. I think an Ergumine wins this personally. But if the Darver Star turns up in this, I'd love to be staying on by him and hopefully getting up the hill in front.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, I think as many people have discussed, and Tom, I'll come to you, this is probably going to be one of the races, if not the race of the festival, set up by the fact that Shishkin is unbeaten and Energumine has been a bit of a revelation this season, but All Mankind will make it very interesting up in front. Is this the race that you have a particular view in? Are you, like Johnny sound from an Irish perspective, very excited by Energumine? We have not seen him yet in this country. Shishkin's been there and done that at Cheltenham. Does that take the edge for you?
Well, before I give my opinion on the race, I was just wondering if Energumine's certain to go to the Arkle, because I had a look on Oddschecker and on other firms, and I was looking at the prices, and there was money for Energumine in the Marsh, like serious money. I don't know whether that's just because of the whole story at the moment that's going around in Envoy Allen, but I was just not 100% sure that Energumine was going to go to the Arkle. I wouldn't be with him anyway in the Arkle. I prefer Shishkin, but it's just a slight question mark there.
Yeah, look, Envoy Allen is, and it's one of those things with the Marsh. Can you be scared of one horse? He's currently the 6-5 on favourite. Energumine is 9-1 for the Marsh, whereas he's a lot shorter for the Arkle, 27-10 currently. But look, they stood their claim for the Arkle. Whether things will change over the next couple of weeks, perhaps, but Shishkin does look pretty solid regardless, and he'll definitely go to that race. It's set up to be an absolute cracker. And look, we'll see what happens in terms of the decisions that will be made. Johnny, things like this, will it be down to timing and ground conditions and things like that? When will the team make their decisions regarding Darver Star?
Well, you see, the big thing with Darver Star is you have the Powers Gold Cup and Fairy House 2 weeks after Cheltenham, so it's 2.5 mile right up his alley. So that's a race being talked about at the moment as well. But all the Cheltenham horses done a bit of work this morning, and Darver Star was in that bit of work and probably done his best ever bit of work. So, when you have a horse good enough for a championship race, or, a good novice in Cheltenham, they don't come around that often. So I'm sure it's very much in the eyes of Gavin and myself and the owners that, like, we're really looking at Cheltenham now. Personally, from riding him, I'd love to go for the Marsh with him. I'd love to go up and trip. But I know owners and Gavin, they're kind of keen on the Arkle too. So I honestly don't know at this stage when the decision will be made. I'd say ground will have a factor. If the ground does dry out and if it looks like it's going to be good ground, I'd say if he goes to Cheltenham, it'll be more likely the Marsh. And if it stays a bit slower, I'd say probably the Arkle. But I honestly don't know. But all I can tell you is seems to be in the best vein of form he's ever been in.
Yeah, and he's very good horse, and he's proven that. He proved that in last season in the Champion Hurdle, what he can do at Cheltenham. Adam, if you had a ride in this race, if you could pick any of the horses that are in the Arkle, who do you pick?
I've been blown away, same as Johnny, by Energumene. I think the way he's done everything in Ireland, I think he could almost run in a champion chase. I can't see anything getting by him, even Shishkin. I think the way he attacks his fences and gallops, he just looks very relentless.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be set up interestingly. He's obviously, we feel, we looked at last races, if he might have got his own way a little bit, it will be tactically a very interesting affair, with All Mankind in there as well. But it seems like Energumene is very popular. I'll stick with you, Adam, because the National Hunt Chase is a race that there are a couple of horses in there that you know very well. One of them being Secret Reprieve, who has been your partner in one of the most exceptional races that we've seen this season in the Welsh Grand National. He does have a few other entries, but I've read that National Hunt Chase would be the likely target if he was to go to Cheltenham as opposed to going straight to the Grand National. What can you tell us about Secret Reprieve and his targets?
I think he will go straight to Aintree. It looks like it's all going that way. I don't think Cheltenham will be his track as such. He's a big staying chaser, but here plans might change. If we get a drop of rain in Cheltenham, it could change the opinion of Evan and the owners. I think they're swaying to go straight to Aintree.
So no change, considering now amateurs aren't riding, and that you could have taken the ride in the National Hunt Chase.
I don't think so, no.
Doesn't make a difference. Fair enough. It does seem the Grand National seems like the perfect, obvious next step for him. And Prime Ventures also entered in that race. He's obviously ran had a very good run behind you in the Welsh Grand National. Would he be targeted for this race?
They might look at it, say it's a very competitive race, and he's ran some good races and some good staying chases. So it wouldn't be out of the question to run him in it again. If Evan thinks he can go and run a good race, we'll see how he's working up until then. I think he holds an entry in the Midlands National as well, so he could well end up going to Uttoxeter after Cheltenham for that. But it's up in the air. They'll probably look at the entries and see what happens closer to the time.
Brilliant. And day one is obviously we begin with the Supreme Novices, which is always a brilliant betting race. Tom, I know there's a horse in here that you are particularly excited by, who's had a £10 hike in the weights after his Betfair Hurdle heroics. Tell us about why you're fancying Soaring Glory.
Yeah, look, I'm a massive fan of this horse. I think John Joy Neal's done a great job with him. I've been a big fan ever since he won his bumper at Warwick. He just travelled through that race like a 150 horse in the making, and he's starting to live up to that reputation and fulfill his potential. The way he just moved through the Betfair Hurdle, you don't see that very often at all. And then he made a slight mistake 2 out. He left his hind legs in the hurdle and he lost a little bit of momentum. And John Joy Neal Jr. just had to just shake the bridle a little bit, shake the reins, and he picked up really powerfully. Now, the way he won that race, he just strikes me as a proper supreme horse. Betfair Hurdle winners haven't had a great record in this race in recent years, the likes of Baliandi, Al Dancer, Kalashnikov. There are several more as well. But I think in Soaring Glory, you've got a different kind of horse in here. The way that he was obviously 100% primed for the Betfair Hurdle suggests that he's also going to be primed for the Supreme. Now, this isn't a very strong renewal. You've got to appreciate it. He's clearly the horse to beat, isn't he? There's no doubt he's a classy performer. His last 2 victories at Leopardstown and Grade 1 Company have both been brilliant. Willie Mullins is seeking a 7th Supreme winner. So all the reasons for backing and supporting Appreciate It are there. But this isn't his trip. He's just in this division because the division is weak at the moment. And at the prices, he's going to go off a very short price favourite, and punters are going to latch onto him, as they always do in the first race. You want to back a winner. I just think there's a much better value in Soaring Glory's price. And at around 10 to 1, he just looks the certain bet for me in the Supreme.
Yeah, he definitely does look value after what he did. I suppose there is negatives, as you said, that the Betfair to Supreme stats don't bode very well. But yeah, around the 10 to 1 mark. The second best of the British with Metier is 7 to 1. He he's been pretty weak as well, and Appreciate It is around about 9-4 mark. So it's for a Supreme, which is usually such a big betting heat, it's sort of lacking on that depth, definitely. But with Soaring Glory, you do have an exceptional talent in terms of what he keeps on improving. So a lot to look forward to with him for that race. And the Ultima is also a race that you've earmarked as a couple of horses in there that you are pretty excited for. One of them, a horse that I couldn't agree with you more, being a son of Jeremy, who I think Jeremy's going to have a very exciting Cheltenham Festival. My little knack for you, and a horse called Happy Go Lucky of Kim Bailey's, who won a novice chase at Cheltenham in December. He's entered in the National Hunt Chase and the Brown Advisory, but Kim Bailey has recently confirmed the Ultima for this horse, who will have a nice enough weight. Tell me more about why Happy Go Lucky is a tip for you, and like his price is come in. He's been supported. It looks like, I think it's around 7-1 mark.
Yeah, well, it was about 8 hours ago when he was available at 11 or 12 to 1, and I was going to be, piping him up and saying he's one of the best bets of the festival at that price, especially in the handicaps. It's a cliche, it's overused, but Kim Bailey just does really well with staying chasers, and this Happy Go Lucky has been earmarked as an ultimate performer ever since he won at this track back in November. He's just a stout front runner. He jumps brilliantly. David Bass we've seen this year on many occasions, he gets a horse to jump, doesn't he, David Bass? He's just been lined up for this race. He's been given a long break. He's got an unexposed profile. I've fallen foul to backing Irish horses in the Ultima. Now, if you back Irish horses at the festival, you're largely going to be winning because the Irish seem to win every race. But in the Ultima, they have a pretty poor record. Now, Milan native, who we'll come to, I imagine, in a minute, he's another fancy in the race. But Happy Go Lucky has to be the number one selection. Everything has gone right in the preparation. Kim Bailey, as you said, has nailed the Ultima as the race. And there's no surprise there's been money today for him. Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, Kim Bailey had a win at the festival with Imperial Aura last year. And Happy Go Lucky definitely has got all the credentials, especially with that Cheltenham winning form as well, which is very important. You touched on Milan native, obviously last year's Kim Muir winner. He was penalised by the handicappers since that Kim Muir win. He's now down to 147, only £2 less than that from the start of the season. He's been sort of underwhelming on his last two starts before the new year, but you think that he is coming into this with a slightly more lower profile than he did coming into that Kim Muir?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, coming into the Kim Muir, I think it was his first handicap chase start, and he was stepping up in trip. It wasn't expected that he was going to go and romp away with that race, but Gordon Elliott got the best out of him that day. Now, obviously, his participation is in question at the moment, given the owner and the trainer, but I know he hasn't been leniently treated by the handicapper, as you say, just £2 lower, but the handicapper knows what he's doing. This horse has a big race left in him. And I just feel like he's another that's been clearly laid out for the race, much like Happy Go Lucky. And aside from, I think backing both of these two horses in the Ultima would leave you in profit on the first day of the Cheltenham Festival.
Obviously, weights coming out tomorrow, so we'll see what the English handicapper says about Milan native. But two very interesting handicap options for everyone on the Tuesday. Now we'll move on to Wednesday, a day which is possibly fair to say slightly quieter for Johnny and Adam. But I want to start with the champion bumper because, Johnny, there's been a horse that you've ridden, let's be clear about it, for your boss, Gavin Cromwell, who's seen the back of both Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard in both of his runs. He's run with enormous amount of credit, but you probably got quite a good handle on where Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard stand based on that form. How do you see your horse going into this, and who do you think is the horse that you need to beat?
Yeah, I think let's be clear about it. He had a tough old day the last day in Leopardstown. They all came to him. There was a grade one, really, even though it was down as a grade two. They all came to one by one. They fended them all off. And then Kilcrut came and obviously did what everyone's seen. But probably could be taken a little bit falsely. Patrick stayed out of the battle the whole time and came and picked up the pieces. And let's be clear about it. He paid the price for basically everything coming and trying to challenge him. So it's hard to take the Kilcrut form. Obviously, he looked mightily impressive, but you'd just be afraid that maybe he came and picked up a race that fell to pieces. Sir Gerhard obviously beat, let's be clear about it, in Navan. I know after the race, Patrick reckoned he went too slow and let it turn into a bit of a sprint. Because I remember actually after the line, about 5 yards after the line, Let's Be Clear About It was back in front again. So I'm not sure if Let's Be Clear About It is going to go over for the race or not, but if he does, I'd quietly fancy Let's Be Clear About It. I think, I don't know what he is at price at 14 or 16 to 1. He I couldn't see him being out of the 3 if he did go over. The race is a great record for 6-year-olds because they're a little bit battle hardened, and Let's Be Clear About It is a 6-year-old. And I wouldn't be a little bit surprised now around Cheltenham with a stiff finish, a good strong run pace. I wouldn't be surprised if Let's Be Clear About It fended off a lot of these. But obviously he has a little bit to find with Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard. But I think Let's Be Clear About It could be value in the race if he runs it.
Yeah, we have them here, SBK, around about the 11 to 1 mark. I was fascinated to see that his Grand Dam Refinement was actually second in the race. It's a nice pedigree note there. And Gavin, I read, has said that he is in great nick, and he's obviously got pretty close to both Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard. Kilcrut, the current 9 to 5 favourite, Sir Gerhard, who's now with Willie Mullins, 5 to 2. So he's got a pretty good stranglehold on the champion bumper as always. Wednesday is also Grand Annual Day, and Adam, a horse, the last day is entered only in one. He only has one race entry, and that is for the Grand Annual. Patchy enough form recently. He won over fences in Aintree in 2019. He's been campaigned over hurdles this year. It's a mark of 137 over fences, and he's another horse that Evan Williams has been massively patient with. What are your ideas of him going to the Grand Annual and the hopes for him?
It's a question of whether we get in, really, I think. But I think he's ran over hurdles a couple of runs this season, and I was very happy at Haydock. He just needed the run that day. And then we went to Warwick and we were very disappointed. But I think truth be told, he needs a fence in front of him. And I think that's where we're going to see him come alive. If he gets in, I think he could run a very good race because he's a horse that does travel strongly and jump very well. So if he got in, I'd be very much looking forward to riding him. It's a very, very competitive race. So whether we get in is a question.
Yeah, the Grand Annual always is, with especially the Irish horses that do go in. But it being an exceptional year and the amount of Irish horses coming over for the handicaps, it could be you could be lucky. So we'll see. Obviously, weight's not out yet. Out tomorrow. Another of the main handicap races on Wednesday is the Coral Cup, and Johnny, Alpha Mix is a horse that you rode last year. She was only beaten 7.5 lengths by Dame de Compagne in last year's event when, as a novice, ran well. Obviously being campaigned over fences this year. What are your thoughts returning back to hurdles if Alpha Mix does go for this?
Yeah, listen, he was a smart performer last year. I won a nice big handicap on him in Ireland. And he was a big raw horse. Like, he's still only filling into himself. And he's been novice chasing this year and running well without winning and stuff. But I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think he might be going over. And he ran a brilliant race to me last year in the Coral Cup. As you say, only beaten 7 lengths, actually jumped the last in front on him. And I just thought he was a bit raw last year, maybe just staying up that hill as a 5-year-old and the size of him. So if he goes back for a race like that, having another year under his belt, he could run a big race, a lovely horse. So I honestly don't know if he is, but he is. He's definitely a lovely horse, and I would say probably would improve for a year more than anything.
And obviously owned by JP McManus, who we know loves the handicap and loves to send to see his horses at the festival. So if anyone's going to bring them over, he would like to see them. So Alpha Mix, one to keep an eye on if he does end up there. The Wednesday is obviously Champion Chase Day, and the current market leader is Chacham Poursoir at 6 to 5, Altior 39 to 5, Nuba Negra 17 to 2. Politilog 10 to 1, but Put the Kettle On at 12 to 1. Tom Collins is a horse that you like a lot. She's obviously got an excellent record at Cheltenham. She won the Arkle last year. She's been back to Cheltenham again and has proved how good she is there. She's also got an entry in the Mare's Chase, but her trainer looks like he's pretty tempted by this race. That 12-1 looks pretty tasty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit gutted she's not going for the Mare's Chase, because I thought she would probably put it up to Ellie May in that race. But look, you can't fault the ambition of Henry de Bromhead to go towards the Champion Chase. Chacun Pour Soi is a monster. We all know that. And he's going to take a load of beating. There are going to be more doubles on Chacun Pour Soi and Monkfish on the Wednesday than I imagine across any other races in the week, because those two horses just look imperious. However, each way punters, don't look beyond Put the Kettle On. As you said, she's got a brilliant record around Cheltenham. She jumps so well. 2 miles is her trip. She should get her ground. There's so many positives for her chance. It's just that she probably doesn't have the class of Chacun Pour Soi. Forecast plays, each way plays, Put the Kettle On is right there. Should have gone for the Mare's Chase though.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, as you say, Henry de Bromhead, and considering they wanted to take her to Kempton and she actually had to end up going to Leopardstown, she didn't run, as well there. It's probably the track that didn't suit her. This for her, in my opinion, a track suiting her was going to see the best effect. So why not go for a Champion Chase? But as you say, would she have more of a chance of winning a race in a mare's version? That's why you've got these options. But those who aren't fan of that mare's race will say, it does dilute the program, but a mare's going for a Champion Chase instead. So I think it's quite an interesting decision nonetheless. We'll move on to Thursday, which is by far probably the most important day for Mr. Johnny Moore, in that he will be partnering probably the most progressive horse on both sides of the Irish Sea in Flooring Porter. I couldn't believe when I was reading that before he started the season, he was on a mark of 122. So he's up £38 now to a mark of 160. He demolished the Boss's Oscar 2 starts ago. He backed that form up when qualifying himself for the Temps last time out. But his best form has obviously came in the Christmas hurdle in Ireland, beating the Storyteller, who's also backed up that form. He made all last time. Are you going to go for the same tactics at Cheltenham? And will he get it his own way? What chinks are there in this horse's armour?
I don't know what chinks are in his armour, because every day I ride him, he surprises me more and more. It was obviously a brave bid from the owners to supplement him for the Christmas hurdle, because he hadn't an entry, but because he won the big handicap in Navan and he went up so much, it was kind of it was either go there or go for the Cleve hurdle in Cheltenham, and we thought Leopardstown would suit him, and it did. He's a bit of an enigma. He sometimes he can have his own thoughts about doing things at home and stuff. But I'd be very. I presume I'll probably try go to tactics that worked last twice maybe and make the running and stuff. But I'd be surprised if there's a 3-miler in the race that could go with me early. Because he actually isn't slow. He when he wants to go, he goes, like as you seen the last day in Leopardstown when they got to me at second last. I got a little breather into him and I gave him a kick in the belly. The way he went again, like he has a turn of foot. He keeps surprising me. Obviously he's coming into this race and you have like past winners, Lisnagar, Oscar there, probably a bigger price than him, and you have obviously Time Hill and Paisley Park who look like they're like obviously very good horses. But without being bullish, I probably wouldn't get off Flooring Porter for anything at the moment anyway.
Yeah, and the Stairs hurdle in years gone by has always been the sort of lesser of the championship races, if that's fair to say. This year, it's got so much depth. And there's obviously last year's winner, Lisnagar Oscar, which we'll come to, but Paisley Park and Time Hill, who've been sort of at each other's throats all season. Sarah de Burley, who was a brilliant Temps winner, but you were ahead of. Roxana could even go in there at the mare. But Lisnagar Oscar, who was last year's winner, was a huge price, 50-1 or so. This year, 18-1. Adam Wedge, I'm going to come to you because you know how to win this race, and you've seen how Lisnagar Oscar's come out of the back of his last run after wind surgery, and he's looks to be in absolute fine form. How do you see his chances going into this? Do you think he's overpriced and overlooked again off the back of what he's done?
I think he'll always be the underdog. I think the faster Johnny goes, the better it'll suit him. He needs a good, strong gallop, and he proved that in Haydock, where he went a good gallop, but he had to make it himself, and he just left himself there open for something to just come and do him on the line. He ran a cracking race back from a wind operation, and I think this is the time of year where he comes into his own. The heavy ground in Wetherby and Newbury, it's not what he wants. He's not a big horse. So I think, again, a bit of good ground, and the faster they go, I think you'll only see more improvement out of him.
Yeah, and he's a horse where Florian Porter doesn't have the sort of the Cheltenham form. He does every time he goes to Cheltenham. He runs so well. Obviously, he won this race last year. He's been second there. He's been third there. He's always turns up there. How important do you think that factor is as well?
I think it's a big thing to take into account. I think horses for courses is a very good saying. If you've got proven form around the course, you can't go too far wrong. And he seems to be coming back to that form from his last run, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking through the list, obviously you've heard Johnny's case for his horse. Who do you think there is to beat, and how are you going to do it?
I think Johnny's horse is very progressive. And I think it will take a lot of beating, but I think Paisley, the two horses at the top, Paisley Park and Tyne Hill, they've been very impressive. And I think Tyne Hill was unlucky last year around Cheltenham. So I think they're both going to be hard to beat. But we've all got to take them on, and we proved last year that they're beatable. I think this year it looks like a very strong race and a very competitive race, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is brilliant to see. And as you were saying, Johnny, a lot of horses, and in the same sense as Nagar Oscar was as well, very good handicappers getting progressive and more progressive, and this 3 mile division is becoming more attractive now. And best of luck to both of you. You both look to have cracking chances at the prices as well. Tom, from your perspective, looking at this race, as I was saying, there is a lot of depth to it. Florian Porter at 11s and Liz Nagar Oscar at 18s. After hearing the cases of their jockeys, what are your thoughts? Do you think they're massively overpriced?
Well, I'm glad Johnny was hyping up Florian Porter, because he beat the Boss's Oscar, who's my biggest outlay of the festival early in the season. So I'm really happy that Florian Porter's been working really well in the build-up to the Cheltenham Festival, and seems to have a great chance. Liz Nagar Oscar, great run last time. He sat on a fast pace, and he really stuck there to the end, didn't he? He bounced right back to form, and he also has a chance. It's a brilliant renewal, a fantastic renewal, by far the best renewal I think I've ever seen in the Stayers. Paisley Park and Tyne Hill were obviously the two to beat, as Adam said, but there's just not much separating these horses at the top of the market. You've got to look at horses at double-figure prices, I think, for a betting perspective. Florian Porter definitely stands out for me, especially if the Boss's Oscar does win the Pertemps. But another one that's interesting for the Irish is Beacon Edge. Now, I don't know if Noel Mead is going to send him here, because he also, I think he's targeted at Aintree as well. But around 20-1, he's very interesting. Now, he was second behind Fury Road in the Boyne. Fury Road, who has long been considered a real player in this race by many pundits, including Paul Keele at the Racing Post. He had the run of the race that day. Jack Kennedy got an easy lead. He got to dictate the speed. He quickened up in his own time, and he looked all over the winner. He had to give £2 to Beacon Edge, which I don't think made too much difference in the end, despite the narrow winning margin. And Beacon Edge still managed to beat Fury Road, despite everything going right for the Jolly. He's a real improver, and about 20-1, I think he's another each-way potential bet in the race, where you can just make a case for so many horses.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think he is interesting, Beacon Edge. I did see there were conversations around that Aintree hurdle, which is obviously another obvious target, if not. But if he does turn up, that's pretty good value at 20s. Look, it's going to be an absolute cracker. And best of luck to both Adam and to Johnny in that. As you were mentioning, Tom, you've got your I didn't know, but one of your biggest outliers of the week. When did you first back the Boss's Oscar, and how pleased were you to see his second place last time? Or do you think that was a little bit too obvious for all your other fellow anti-post backers of this horse?
Yeah, I mean, it was very obvious, wasn't it? Every performance he puts up is an obvious link to this Pertemps final. He's a typical Gordon Elliott Pertemps horse, isn't he? We've seen it with Cider Burley the last few years, and I backed Cider Burley when he was under serious pressure down the back by Barry. He was sent off a really short price favourite, and I was on anti-post that day, and I was in the stands working, and I thought it was game over, and I was going all red and thinking this is a terrible day. But Barry got him up on the line. Now I'm hoping the Boss's Oscar can do similar this year. Been on since October, November as well. I plunged in at double figure prices. I just think he's had the perfect prep. He bumped into a really good horse in Flora and Porter. And then last time out, it was just a brilliant ride, wasn't it? I mean, he finished second. You don't really want to be winning that because you don't want to go up too many pounds. Now the handicapper obviously knew that he was worth more than his performance that day and finishing second. He was the best horse in the race, and he's put him up to, I think, a mark of 151. That means he's got to be a graded horse. Yeah, he's got to be a graded horse to win that, but he is, isn't he? The Boss's Oscar. I'm very bullish as you can be in a really competitive handicap hurdle like the Potemps.
Yeah, absolutely. The Boss's Oscar for Tom. And Thursday is also Cool Cody Day for Adam Wedge if he lines up in the Festival Plate, as it looks potentially like he obviously won the Paddy Power Gold Cup at Cheltenham. Perhaps jumped slightly poorly last time in the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup. He returned to Kempton after a 77-day break where he travelled really well, Adam. He went quite short in the run as well. You must have been pleased with that prep ahead of Cheltenham last weekend.
I thought it was a fantastic run. He's jumped and travelled really strongly and had a great old time out there. And I think that'll just put him spot on now for Cheltenham. I think everyone wanted to use that as a stepping stone because he's quite a bullish horse. And if we can get a run into him, it just takes the edge off him. I thought he was very good in the Paddy Power. And then going back to Cheltenham, the ground probably just went a little bit against him. It was very sticky and holding that day. But again, it was a very good run. We still finished up sides Master Tommy Tucker, and he's come out and won a couple of nice races since. And I think he can go to Cheltenham with a massive chance because he's a horse that will just keep galloping and keep sticking his head out all the way to the line.
Yeah, and as you said, we talked about horses for courses. He does have that course form when he does have his conditions into his favour. So he's another one, if things all pan out the way that you like to hope them to be, is a horse that is this a race that you always had aimed for when he won the Paddy Power Gold Cup? Was that the long-term target for the spring?
No, Evan had always had this race in mind, coming for the Cheltenham Festival. You know, after winning the Paddy Power, it's lovely to come to Cheltenham Festival and think you've got a good chance. Like you say, he's got course form. I think he can run very well in this race.
Brilliant. Very exciting ride for Adam on Thursday. Big day on Thursday for Adam. We'll move on to Friday. Another day busy with lots of potential horses, lots of horses that the lads have that are doubly entered. But looking through, we'll start with the Albert Bartlett. And Johnny, a horse that, Vanillier was second to Farouk de Hélène in a Grade 2. He had a strong profile early along in the season, but he sort of flopped at Leopardstown last time over 2 miles 6. Should we put a line through that in a race which obviously throws up a lot of different results over the years? Last year it was a very strong renewal, the Albert Bartlett. This year, slightly a little bit more open.
Yeah, no, Leopardstown the last day, he just wasn't right. Something was amiss. He never travelled, and to give him easy time, but he just wasn't happy. So I'd imagine I'd be hoping he can draw a line through that. Obviously Statler's second favourite, and we beat him well in the maiden hurdle. And he was a good second to Farouk de Hélène down in Limerick when he would have hated that heavy ground. This is one horse all year I've been tipping up at home that I thought he's going to be a real Albert Bartlett horse. He's a real tough, hardy sort of horse, and he showed none of that in Leopardstown the last day, which clearly shows that he wasn't right. So it's probably against time now to get him properly right for Cheltenham. Because obviously he wasn't right in Leopardstown. Gavin's kind of given him an easy couple of weeks. He did do a bit of work today, so he it's probably a race against time. But I really loved him all year. This is the one horse that I've said before Derby Star and Flora and Porter were ever mentioned or thinking about different races. Vanillier was the one horse I thought was made for the Albert Bartlett. Obviously you have a few doubts in your head after his run the last day in Leopardstown, but he clearly wasn't right. And because of that run, like, Gavin is kind of unsure if he's going to go over or not. But I'd be definitely all for him going over. And if he went over and he turned up healthy and well, I think he has a massive chance in this race because he's made for the race. He's tough, hard. You have to be such a tough, hardy horse for this race. And he's all that toughness and hardiness and age on his side. And he's a point-to-point winner from the front in Drumahan, where, you know, is one of the most prolific point-to-point tracks in Ireland. And I beat Statler well today in Naas. So I'm hoping he turns up there in good form. But like he's obviously be a hard horse to back off after his run the last day. But you know, it's a tough old race, this Albert Bartlett. So you want to be going there and you know, at the best of your health.
Yeah, interesting. So let's keep an eye on what pans out for Vanillier over the next couple of weeks, and best of luck with him. And Adam, there's a couple of horses that you've been associated with that have got entries for the Albert Bartlett. Penny for a Pound is one of them, who won a banger maiden last time out. And also Pat's Fancy, who was second in Albert Bartlett Novices Trial at Cheltenham. Their hopes and thoughts, are you as bullish about either of them as Johnny is about Vanillier?
I think Pat's Fancy could run a big race at a big price. He ran well round there when he finished second. And Sean rode him in Doncaster and just said he got stuck in the ground and he was hating every minute of it. It was terrible old tacky ground up there. So again, I think if there's a bit of good ground there, I think he could be one that could run a big race at a big price. Say he handled the track very well. And Rebecca said to me that he didn't deserve to be a 33-1 shot that day. So she obviously holds him in high stead, you know. So I think he could run a big race.
Yeah, it's as I said, it's a race that's thrown up some massive price winners in the past, and it's not an obvious. There's in terms of a favourite, there is not an obvious candidate. Statler's it's currently 11-2, Torograph 9-1, along with Fakira and Barbados Bucks. So there are a couple of horses there that we think might have a good chance at a bigger price.
One horse, sorry, I meant to say that probably is overpriced in the race as well, is John McConnell's horse, Streets of Dying. If you like Florin Porter, or he has track form as well. He was the last horse to beat Florin Porter in Gorn. Got a prep run in Naas last weekend over 2 miles just because they didn't want to run him over any further. He's probably definitely the overpriced horse in the race, 25-1 as well. He'd be definitely one to keep an eye on.
And the one that they've been aiming for with an eye on this race for some time.
Exactly, yeah. And he won around Cheltenham there in the autumn, and yeah, he's been set up for this race. And beat Florin Porter well enough in Gorn. Florin Porter trying to run out and stuff, but still beat him. And he's obviously went on to win a grade 1 against older horses. So he'd have real strong form lines in this race. And I think he's 20 or 25-1. So he's definitely a horse that I wouldn't be losing touch with.
So Streets of Dying, another one us to know. The Irish novices have an excellent record in this race as well. So very interesting to see how this one pans out. Friday is a busy handicap day. There is a horse, Johnny, Wolf Prince, who last year was one of the Antipode's favourites for the Boodles and had to be pulled out after having a knock just in the lead up. So was ruled out of that race. He's a consistent sort who's been placed twice this season, but perhaps slightly below par last time at the Dublin Racing Festival. He's in the County Hurdle and the Martin Pipe. Where do you think he might go to, and how is he?
He goes for the County Hurdle. Pretty sure, and that's where he's going to go. I actually thought he would have won with the way, I know, unfortunately, Goshen came down in the Triumph last year. I think if he didn't get injured before the Triumph last year, I think he would have won the Triumph. He was in great form last year. We stepped him up to 2.5 mile there the last day in a handicap, and he was just doing too much the whole time and heavy ground. And I know, as Adam will know, when a horse is pulling throughout a race on heavy ground in a good handicap, they're never going to run well, and that's really what happened to him. I think a strong run County Hurdle will really suit him, and I'd fancy him to run a big race. It'd be hard to see him winning it, but I think he'd run a big race in it. It'll suit him because he always runs really well in 2 mile races. Ran at a strong pace where he can settle. So yeah, he'll go for the County. Whether he'll be good enough to win it, I'd be doubtful, but I think he'll run well.
Yeah, interesting to see what marquee gets given as well for the county. So it won't be in the Martin Pipe, but there are a couple of others that you're associated with. One being Gabinaco. He looks like he might be going to the Martin Pipe. Is that right? He's got some good novice form, and he's got a rating of 138, Irish rating anyway. Does he head to the Martin Pipe? Is that his number one option?
Yeah, I was trying to convince him to run him in the Coral Cup so I could ride him, but I think Gavin,
You
yeah,
could
he's
ride.
keen. Gavin's keen on the Martin Pipe for him. I'd be fairly sure he will go for the Martin Pipe. He ran in Leopardstown last day in a handicap just to give him a bit of handicap experience, and he handled it quite well. Probably a trip was a little short from. He's had some great novice hurdle run forms, third behind Bob Ollinger. I think Bob Ollinger is the best novice hurdler this year. I think he wins the Ballymore on the bridle. So yeah, Gabinaco. One thing I'd be worried about is he'd be a little bit babyish for a Martin Pipe because he is a funny sort, but he'd definitely go on there with a huge chance.
Brilliant. And there's Adam, there's a horse, Dans Levant, who the Evan Williams team has got entered in both the Coral Cup and the Martin Pipe in a similar vein to Gabinaco. Obviously, Isabel Williams has been partnering this horse. Is this one that she hopes to ride in the Martin Pipe? He's obviously been running with credit, especially at Ascot over the last couple of goes. Possibly wants better ground, I wrote down, but where does that horse go? Do you know? Will it be the Martin Pipe with Isabel Williams?
I think he will go for the Martin Pipe, and I think you're right. A bit of better ground will suit him down to the ground, and a good strong run race around Cheltenham with a stiff finish, I think, will play into his strengths. He hasn't stopped galloping the last twice around Ascot, and if they go good and hard, he'll be coming up that hill as good as anyone.
Brilliant. So it's so the Friday is obviously topped by the race of the week, and that's the Gold Cup. And I wanted to bring Tom in for this because you've got a tip it for the Gold Cup. It's obviously a race that wanted to get the thoughts of Adam and Johnny from their perspective, and seeing what is a race that has been dominated in the market by Albion Photo, the dual winner of this race. He's currently 3-1. And there's it's seemingly like how does a horse beat Albion Photo, or how does anyone go out and beat Albion Photo? Tom, you think Champ can do it?
Yeah, look, I really hope Champ can do it. I thought the move from Nicky Henderson to run him in the Game Spirit was inspired. Now, I know he got a lot of criticism on social media and in from several pundits as well that they didn't run in the Denman Chase, but you see it in American racing now. I'm a big fan of American racing, and I always bring it up and people mock me for it, but here we go. I'm going to bring it up again. In American racing, you see horses run over 5 furlongs, then go straight up to a mile, and it's a perfect prep. Like, you get a horse red hot and fit, running at the top speed they can over 5 furlongs, then they go and run over a further distance, a longer distance, and stay the trip well and run career best races. Now, I'm no trainer, but that's the theory that I've picked up from the US racing. Champ, I thought that was a great move. He got his jump in spot on over a shorter trip where they were going faster. Henrietta Knight's done a great job with Champ. And I just thought he finished second to a horse in So Royale that's a specialist at 2 miles. Like, he's not going to beat So Royale because he's not as quick as So Royale. He made a mistake at the last, which, fine, he's made mistakes before, but he recovered from it. He picked up his stride, regained his stride, and it was just the perfect prep for the Gold Cup. Now, obviously, Albion Photo is a brilliant horse, isn't he? He takes heart, a really good constitution, and a serious level of ability to win back-to-back Gold Cups. And if he wins a third, then look, we're going to hold our hands up and be like, how has he not been sent off a short price favourite, because he's won it for the last 2 years? But he hasn't been winning those editions by a wide margin. And I just wasn't that impressed by his Tremor comeback. I wasn't expecting great things. Obviously, his last run at Tremor in the same race, prepping for last year's Gold Cup, was a similar kind of performance. He got given a really high Racing Post rating as a result this year. But I thought from a visual perspective, he wasn't overly impressive. He looked in a bit of trouble down the back, and I just want to take him on with an up-and-comer. And I think Champ could be the one to go to the next level and beat Albion Photo.
Yeah, you mentioned his jumping. I think everyone wanted to see. He's pretty wayward when it comes to his jumping last season as a novice anyway, and everyone wanted to see this run in open company, how he would jump, and also the fact that he's partnered with a new jockey, Nico de Boinville, and that appearance at Newbury was the best that they could have expected, if better. And you know, he's been cut pretty short. He's now 11-2 for the Gold Cup. It is for him. It's fascinating in that he's, you know, who was a novice going into open company. There are horses like a Plutard who won the Savills, who is having to go up to a new trip for the first time. He's probably vulnerable because of that. Santini, we know, hasn't showed himself to best effect this year. Frodon, the King George winner, he loves coming to Cheltenham, but again, people think he might not have the class for it. And then there's the likes of Native River, who's a bit of an old warrior. Adam, I'm going to throw it to you. How do you see this Gold Cup shaping up, and do you think Album Photo is the most likely horse to win, to get to be the first horse best mate to win 3 in a row?
I think he will take a lot of beating. But a horse I've always liked is Ken Boy. I know some of his form around Cheltenham is a bit hit and miss, but if he can put his best foot forward and get in a good rhythm jump in, I think he'll put up a very big show. He's a horse I've always watched and always thought I'd love to have a go riding him. He just got a bit of a soft spot for me.
It's interesting you talk about Ken Boy, because he had that entry for the Stayers as well, and everyone sort of couldn't believe it that Willie Mullins came out off the back of that Irish Gold Cup win and said, well, we're actually going to send him to the Stayers. It just shows the strength he has. And he would have been quite an interesting horse in that race, but they since decided that they're going to go for the Gold Cup. He is 14-1. And the race tactics, as you said, is something that they're going to sort of adopt. And who rides him? You know, that's the big question. With Patrick Mullins not necessarily coming over, and Album Photo with Paul Townend, maybe it could be Danny Mullins again. But he's had a bit of a fraught time at Cheltenham, so it'll be interesting to see if this year will be his 3rd time lucky. Johnny Moore, if you could have a rider in the Gold Cup, which do you choose?
I'd have to stick with a favourite. I'd choose Album Photo, but yeah, he's been flawless. You know, it's hard to knock him, but there's cases for obviously a few horses in the race. There's 5 or 6 I'd like to ride, but if you had to nail me to one, it'd be Album Photo. I think Champ looked very good the last day. Thought he would have won if he jumped the last over. Obviously, a trip was too short. He stays all day. Plutard stayed very well in Leopardstown. I actually made the run in that day with Ken Boy in Savills Chase. Went a good strong gallop. So Ken Boy has shown that he's back to his battle hardened best, as Adam was saying there. And like, you know, Ruby rode him on his final start because he thought he was better than Album Photo. And you know, he's a very good horse. Frodon is extremely good in the King George. Loves Cheltenham. Probably been a little bit overlooked in my eyes. He's you know, he could turn up and give him a match run. And Native River obviously was brilliant the last day in Sandown. I know there's always a case for a lot of horses in the Gold Cup, but I do think Album Photo will win. But there's 4 or 5 there that I'd find it hard to pick from behind them.
Yeah, it's an interesting renewal in that there isn't one obvious novice that's coming into open company for the first time, bar perhaps Champ, but outside in terms of an Irish perspective, that is throwing their hat in the ring. And there's a race that we haven't discussed, which possibly will throw up next year as one of next year's market leaders in the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, in that Monkfish looks to have all the credentials to become a Gold Cup horse. Johnny, I suppose you would have seen him running and doing such brilliant things over back in Ireland. Do you see Monkfish as a next year Gold Cup winner, a future Gold Cup winner? He's currently the 4-5 favourite for the Brown Advisory. Is a horse like that going to make his claim as a Gold Cup horse for the future?
Yeah, listen, Monkfish has been flawless. He's poor latest exhibition. You can see how good his novice hurdle form has turned out with Time Hill, and he's just been knocking on the door with Monkfish all day. Monkfish, he looks flawless. Looks like he's really going to be turned into a real proper grade Gold Cup horse. I think next year we're going to go to, if everything goes the way it's going, I think we're going to go to Cheltenham next year with Monkfish and Envoy Allen as your 2 favourite and second favourite for the Gold Cup. So yeah, I'd say that the Titanic battle be whenever Monkfish and Envoy Allen meet, because I think the two, I think the two of them, until they meet, I think they're going to win any race they're running.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that Envoy Allen is another obvious horse that I was going to discuss with the two of you, especially now with the news that he will be trained by Henry de Bromhead. Something that I wanted to ask you both, obviously with the timing so close to the festival, how that change would affect a horse like that so close to such a big race, which he's been primed for, and several of the others, Quilixios, Gerhard as well. From Adam, from your experience knowing horses and how they adapt and move around, is Envoy Allen should he still be as solid a favourite as he is for the Marsh, or do you think this change in routine and surroundings will have an effect on a horse like this?
I think it's very much dependent on the horse. Some horses take it very well, and some horses not so much. They take a little bit of time. But I think for a horse that's been over to Cheltenham and they'd be used to change, coming from Gordon's before over to Cheltenham, used to going into different boxes and different gallops, I suppose it's not going to be too much of a change for him, and I can't see it being too much of a problem. I still think he's as solid as he's ever going to be.
Yeah, he's obviously been a little bit weak in the markets over the last couple of days, but he's pretty strong and has been all year for the Marsh, and still is one of the Irish bankers of the meeting. We have got to the end of Friday, and we've got through it in pretty good time, but it probably leaves me to really discuss and ask everyone, and I'll start with you, Tom. You mentioned your one of your best bets of the festival and Boss's Oscar being one. Would you, if you had to pick one horse and you could only have one bet on one horse for the whole festival, is that the Boss's Oscar?
Oh, as if you're doing that to me, Jess. Just one? Come on, can I give you two?
Give us two, but it has to be less obvious than the Boss's Oscar.
Oh, I don't know about that. Okay, the Boss's Oscar is one. The banker, I would say, obviously, you can't really have a banker in the Potents. Like, I love the Boss's Oscar, but it's a big field, competitive handicap hurdle, so you can't really clarify him as a banker. The banker is Bob Ollinger. I know Johnny's already mentioned him. He thinks Bob Ollinger's going to win the Ballymore and the Bridle. I think he will too. He just looks exceptional, doesn't he? Exceptional novice. His only defeat came to Fernie Hollow, and he was only beaten a narrow margin that day and probably should have won the race. Fernie Hollow's a brilliant horse, unfortunately bypassing the rest of the year. On Racing Post ratings, he's the horse to beat. I didn't really like Gallard de Manil's Grade 1 win last time. It was against horses that were running at inadequate trips. For Kira and Statler, obviously, better over 3 miles. Ganapathy, I think he's got a good chance in the Martin Pipe back in trip as well. So I don't think he stayed. So I don't really like Gallard de Manil. Brave Man's Game's a nice horse, but maybe the future, he'll be better in the future. So Bob Ollinger in the Ballymore would be the banker of the meeting for me.
And a pretty good banker, because he's around about the 4-1 shot for the Ballymore, which seems pretty good value for a banker. Absolutely. Is there, and you mentioned, Johnny, yourself, you think you hold Bob Ollinger in really high regard. 4-1 for a horse that's done what he's done, and with the connections he has, why is he that price? Is it just the Willie Mullins factor?
Yeah, I can't believe he's 4-1. He's my banker as well. I know I'm sounding like I'm a copycat here, but I got my speaking first earlier. But no, I think I followed him around Naas, and he looked mightily impressive. The only chink in his armor was really his jumping in his early days, but he looks like he's got that all back together. Yeah, I think he's a machine, and he'll win the Ballymore well.
It looks like Henry de Bromhead is going to have quite a nice Cheltenham Festival after the last couple of days, and the news we've had, and Bob Ollinger could be one of them. We've Adam Wedge, if you had any horse from the week that you would like to ride that you're not riding, which would that be? Johnny, it sounds like Bob Ollinger is one of his.
Monkfish, I'd love to ride. I think he's been very impressive, and as you say, it'd be all roads to Cheltenham next year with him. I think he is the banker of the meeting for me.
The Monkfish for Adam Wedge. Tom Collins goes Bob Ollinger. Johnny Moore, would you be starting with Bob Ollinger as well?
Yeah,
all the non-horses that you're not riding.
Yeah, Bob Ollinger, and Argumine, Monkfish, the 3 them win.
Pretty good treble that. I think. And in terms of the horses you are riding, obviously we've talked about Florian Porter and Vanillier, who sounds like a horse that we just sort of got to wait and see. But in terms of your best chance for the week, it sounds like it has to be Florian Porter.
Yeah, it is definitely Florian Porter is one I'm definitely looking forward to. And if maybe the disruption to Envoy Allen can do anything to him in the Marsh, Darver Star is overpriced for that. If he's back to his best, you've seen him last year, third in the Champion Hurdle. So I'd be very looking forward to Darver Star if he lined up in the Marsh. He was only 2 lengths behind, actually, Envoy Allen in a Royal Bond, and actually was quicker from the back of the last of the line in the Royal Bond than Envoy Allen that year. So he ties in a little bit with him. So I'd be very looking forward to ride Darver Star if he goes there for the Marsh as well. But obviously Florian Porter will be the main target.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. And Adam, for you, your best chance of the week?
Has to be Silver Streak. Really looking forward to riding him, and start the week off would be fantastic. I think, his horse I just love riding, and he'll be my best chance. Yeah,
he looks like if there's any horse that you want to be on and looks like he's enjoying his racing more than any this season, it's Silver Streak. And Evan Williams has done such a brilliant job getting him to his peak, and turns up to Cheltenham every year and runs a great race. So best of luck to both of you. Tom, you've given us your best bets of the festival. I wanted to throw in a horse for the Ryanair that I quite like at a bigger price, which is Mr. Fisher. I think he might be slightly overlooked. I talked earlier about Jeremy and Sons and Daughters of Jeremy that I think are going to do quite well at this year's festival. He only had 2 seasons as a national hunt sire before he died. And a lot of those horses are now 6 and 7 years old. And Mr. Fisher is one of them. And he's got that course form. And I think I think Nicky Henderson will have him tip top for the Ryanair. So that's where I'm one of my tips if you like them. I think that's all. We've got through everything this evening. We've skipped through it all. Hopefully we've covered everything that everyone wants to hear. I think all there is left to say is Adam and Johnny, massively good luck for the week. And Tom, as to you, and hopefully we've sent everyone home with a couple of winners. And best of luck. And remember to bet with SBK.